welcome to my channel. Today we are talking about two very strange UFO cases that are of course unsolved to this day. First time in civil aviation history, a passenger plane was landed because of the UFO threat, but luckily no one was hurt. The other case is more tragic because no one knows what really happened, and was the pilot of the small plane killed by the UFO, or was it all just a freak accident? I believe you'll make up your own mind after hearing the stories. But before we start, I just want to recommend an awesome channel for all paranormal lovers, the 3X or Tricks, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Anyway, the channel is great with great scary videos and unexplained footage. Link is in the description box, so head over there and show some love by subscribing and hitting the like button. Now, let's get started. The Manises UFO incident took place on 11 November 1979, forcing a commercial flight of the Spanish company TAE with 109 passengers to make an emergency landing at Manises airport in Valencia, Spain, when they were flying over Ibiza. After the emergency landing, a Spanish Air Force fighter aircraft took off from Los Llanos base in order to intercept the mysterious object. A TAE was the first aircraft involved in the incident. Flight JK297 had taken off from Salzburg, Austria with 109 passengers on board and had made a refueling stop on the island Mallorca before setting course toward Las Palmas. Halfway through the flight at about 11 p.m., pilot Francisco Javier Lerdo de Geada and his crew noticed a set of red lights that were fast approaching the aircraft. These lights appeared to be on a collision course with the aircraft, alarming the crew. The captain requested information about the inexplicable lights, but neither the military radar of Madrid nor the flight control center in Barcelona could provide any explanation for this phenomenon. In order to avoid a possible collision, the captain changed altitude. However, the lights mirrored the new course and stayed about half a kilometer away from the plane. Since the object was violating all elementary safety rules and an invasive maneuver was deemed impossible by the crew, the captain decided on going off course and made an emergency landing in Manises airport. This was the first time in history in which a commercial flight was forced to make an emergency landing because of a UFO. The flight crew reported the lights abandoning the pursuit just before the landing took place. However, 3 new UFO signals were detected by the radar, each one with an estimated diameter of 200 meters. The objects were seen by several witnesses. One of the UFOs passed very close to an airport runway, and emergency lights were lit by the land crew in case the object happened to be an unregistered flight experiencing difficulties. Given the lack of answer to all communication attempts, a Mirage F-1 took off from the nearby airbase of Los Llanos to identify the phenomenon. The pilot, Spanish Air Force Captain Fernando Camara, had to increase his speed to Mach 1.4 just to be able to get visual contact with what he perceived to be a cone shape displaying a changing bright color. But despite his initial efforts, the object quickly disappeared from sight. The pilot was informed of a new radar echo, which indicated that another object might be near Valencia. When the pilot was close enough, the object accelerated and disappeared again. This time though, the UFO seemed to respond, and the fighter had its avionics scrambled, its electronic flight system were jammed, and onboard alert system in the F-1 warned Captain Camara as if he was being locked on by a continuous wave missile radar. At least, and after a third contact attempt, the UFO finally disappeared, heading for Africa. After an hour and a half of pursuit and due to fuel shortage, the pilot was forced to return to the base with no results. The public impact of the incident was such that on September 1980 it reached the Spanish parliament. The High Chamber representative Enrique Herzog publicly asked for an official explanation, but a UFO sighting was dismissed and the incident was attributed to a series of freak optical illusions. The full official report, declassified by Spanish Air Force on August 1994, stated that the JK-297 pilot Javier de Tejada and the land crew in Manassas Airport and the Air Force captain Fernando Camara may have been misled by flashes emitted from a distant chemical industry complex about 100 miles away from Manassas, and some stars and planets. Although this possibility has been much debated and repeatedly rejected by everyone involved, it stands as the only non-UFO related explanation. The on-flight difficulties experienced by a fighter were not mentioned in the public release. The electronic system failure on board of the Mirage F1 could nevertheless be explained by the fact that United States Sixth Fleet was stationed in the area and was making use of a powerful electronic warfare equipment while awaiting the outcome of Iran hostage crisis. The F1 combat pilot Fernando Camara rejected such a possibility, saying that the Sixth Fleet was too far and furthermore his system got jammed when he tried to block the UFO with an IR missile.
Frederick Valentich was an Australian pilot who disappeared while on 125 nautical miles training flight in Cessna 182L light aircraft, registered VHDSJ, over base Strains on the evening on Saturday, 21st October 1978. Described as a flying saucer enthusiast, 20-year-old Valentich informed Melbourne Air Traffic Control that he was being accompanied by an aircraft about 100 feet above him and that his engine has begun running roughly before finally reporting, "It's not an aircraft." There were baffled reports of UFO sightings in Australia on the night of the disappearance. However, the Associated Press reported that Department on Transport was skeptical a UFO was behind Valentich's disappearance, and that some of their officials speculated that Valentich became disorientated and saw his own lights reflecting in the water, or lights from a nearby island while flying upside down. Frederick Valentich had about 150 total hours flying time and held a Class 4 instrument rating, which authorized him to fly at night, but only in visual meteorological conditions. He had twice applied to enlist in the Royal Australian Air Force, but was rejected because of inadequate educational qualifications. He was a member of the RAAF Air Training Corps, determined to have a career in aviation. Valentich was studying part-time to become a commercial pilot, but had a poor achievement record, having twice failed all 5 commercial license examination subjects, and as recently as a month before his disappearance, he failed 3 more commercial license subjects. He had been involved in flying incidents, for example, straying into a control zone in Sydney, for which he received a warning, and twice deliberately fly into a cloud, for which prosecution was being considered. According to his father Guido, Valentich was an ardent believer in UFOs and had been worried about being attacked by them. The destination of Valentich's final flight was King Island, but his motivation for the flight is unknown. He told flight officials that he was going to King Island to pick up some friends, while he told others that he was going to pick up crayfish. Later investigation found both states' reasons to be untrue. Valentich has also failed to inform King Island Airport on his intentions to landing there, going against standard procedure. A sea and air search was undertaken that included ocean-going shift traffic, an RAAF Lockheed P-3 Orion aircraft, plus 8 civilian aircraft. The search encompassed over 1,000 square miles. Search efforts ceased on 25 October 1978 without results. An investigation into Valentich's disappearance by the Australian Department of Transport was unable to determine the cause, but it was presumed fatal for Valentich. 5 years after Valentich's aircraft went missing, an engined cowl flap was found washed ashore on Flinders Island. But in July 1983, the Bureau of Air Safety Investigation asked the Royal Australian Navy Research Laboratory about the likelihood that the cowl flap might have traveled to its ultimate position from the region where the aircraft disappeared. The Bureau noted that the part has been identified as having came from a Cessna 182 aircraft between a certain range of serial numbers, which included Valentich aircraft. It has been proposed that Valentich staged his own disappearance, even taking into account a trip of between 30 to 45 minutes to Cape Otway. The single-engine Cessna 182 still had enough fuel to fly 800 kilometers, 500 miles. Despite ideal condition, at no time was the aircraft plotted on radar, casting doubts as to whether it was ever near Cape Otway. And Melbourne police received reports of light aircraft making a mysterious landing not far from Cape Otway, at the same time as Valentich's disappearance. Another proposed explanation is that Valentich became disoriented and was flying upside down. If this were the case, the lights he thought he saw would have been his own aircraft lights, reflected in the water. He would then have crashed into the water. However, the model Cessna he was piloting could not have flown inverted for long, as it had a gravity-feed fuel system, meaning that its engine would have cut out very quickly. Yet another proposed possibility is suicide. However, interviews with doctors and colleagues who knew him virtually eliminated this possibility. A 2013 review on the radio transcripts and other data by astronomer and retired United States Air Force pilot James McGee and author Joe Nickell proposed that the inexperienced Valentich was deceived by the illusion of a tidal horizon, for which he attempted to compensate and inadvertently put his aircraft into a downward so-called graveyard spiral, which he initially mistook for simple orbiting of the aircraft. According to the authors, the g-force of the tightening spiral would decrease fuel flow, resulting in the rough IDing report by Valentich. McGee and Nickell also proposed that the apparently stationary overhead light that Valentich reported were probably the planets Venus, Mars and Mercury, along with the bright star Antares, which would have been behaved in a way consistent with Valentich's descriptions. Ufologists have speculated that extraterrestrials either destroyed Valentich's aircraft or abducted him, asserting that some individual reported seeing an erratically moving green light in the sky and that he was in a steep dive at the time. Ufologists believe these accounts are significant because of the green light mentioned in Valentich's radio transmissions. The group Ground Saucer Watch, based in Phoenix, Arizona, United States, claims that photos taken by plumber Roy Manfold on the day of Valentich's disappearance show a fast-moving object exiting the water near Cape Otway Lighthouse. According to UFO writer Jerome Clark, Ground Saucer Watch argued that they showed a flying object of moderate dimensions, apparently surrounded by a cloud-like vapor exhaust residue, although the pictures were not clear enough to identify the object. It's funny how authorities always find some ridiculous reason and explanation for what happens in the sky. It's highly unlikely that a well-trained military pilot can tell the difference between the moon, stars and UFOs. There are so many pilot sightings that came to light years after the incidents occur. Most of the time they were threatened and forbidden to talk publicly about it, but the truth always finds a way, and then it's spread like a wildfire. So what do you guys think about these cases? Leave your comments below. Thank you for stopping by, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.